We've
It's a little windy.
Yeah, we arrived and the wind is whipping.
And we have made it to the second most visited spot in France, and that is Mont Saint Michel. And this is a place that I have wanted to come to for years. I've seen it on a lot of travel channels, and it is just amazing to be here this morning. It is more beautiful in person than
pictures or videos can do justice.
Yeah. So we're going to try and make it to the top. We're not sure we will, but we're going to try. So come along with us.
Welcome to Retired to Rome. I'm LJ.
I'm Russell. We're retired, traveling full time,
on a budget and loving every minute of it. As we make our way toward Mont Saint Michel, it almost feels like we're walking into a postcard, rising out of the bay like something imagined. This island has been pulling travelers in for over 1,000 years. Getting out here is actually part of the experience. Most visitors park on the mainland and either hop on a free shuttle or take the scenic walk across the long causeway, about a mile stretch, that slowly reveals how massive this place really is. And trust us, take the free shuttle. You're going to get plenty of steps in on the island itself. As we step through the gates and onto the island, it's like entering another century. This isn't just a one landmark area. It's an entire medieval village. Stone houses stacked on top of each other, narrow winding streets, small shops, cafes, and even a few hotels tucked inside these ancient walls. And towering above it all, the reason it exists in the first place. Construction here dates all the way back to the year 708, when, according to the legend, the Archangel Michael appeared to a bishop and instructed him to build a sanctuary on this rock. Over the centuries, it grew into the Abbey we're climbing toward now, layer by layer, stone by stone. The higher we go, the narrower the streets become, and the more the crowds fade into the background. You start to notice the details, the worn steps, the centuries-old walls, the feeling that millions of people have made this exact journey before you. And then there's the tides. At high tide, this entire island becomes completely surrounded by water, cut off from the mainland. Just hours later, the sea pulls back, revealing vast stretches of sand. It's constantly changing, just like it has for centuries. We're not at the monastery just yet, but you can feel it getting closer with every step.
Over centuries, builders had to solve a huge challenge. How do you construct a massive abbey on a steep, uneven rock surrounded by shifting tides? The answer was to build up and in layers. At the base, they created strong stone foundations and support structures to anchor everything into the rock. Then, as time went on, they added levels. First, small chapels, then larger halls, and eventually the towering monastery above. Materials had to be brought in from the mainland by boat during high tide, or by carts across the sand when the tide was out. Every stone you see here was moved and placed by hand. As the abbey grew, the village followed. Houses, walls, and narrow streets were built tightly along the sides of the rock, almost stacking on top of each other to make the most of the limited space. And to protect it all, massive fortifications were added during the Middle Ages, turning this into not just a religious site, but a fortress that withstood sieges, including during the 100 Years' War. What makes it even more incredible is that construction here continued for hundreds of years. Different architectural styles, different generations of builders, all leaving their mark on this one small island. And today, what you're looking at isn't just one building, it's 1,000 years of human effort rising straight out of the sea.
Now, if you follow us here at Retired to Rome, you know that we pass on a lot of tourist attractions, but not this one. Tickets to enter the Abbey are about €13 per adult, and you'll definitely want to check the official website ahead of time for current hours and any closure dates, because they do change depending on the season. Now, getting up here, as you've seen from the video, it's a bit of a hike. From the base of the village to the top of the monastery, you're looking at roughly 300 to 350 steps. Keep in mind it's not a race, but it's a steady uphill walk through narrow streets and stone stairways that have been worn down over centuries. And once you reach the top, the exterior alone is worth the effort. The Abbey rises in layers, almost like it was stacked into the sky. Massive stone walls, Gothic spires, and that iconic statue of St. Michael perched at the very top. It's one of those places that looks just as unreal up close as it does from a distance, and more stairs. At its peak during the Middle Ages, the Abbey was home to around 40 to 60 monks, primarily Benedictines, living, working, and worshiping here daily. Today, the numbers are much smaller. There's a small religious community still present, including a handful of monks and nuns who continue the spiritual tradition of the island. As for how all this is maintained today, it's largely funded through tourism. Millions of visitors come here each year, and ticket sales to the Abbey, along with shops, restaurants, and government support from France, all help preserve this incredible site for future generations.
As we step into one of the first chapels at the top, you'll notice right away it's a lot simpler than you might expect. No over-the-top decoration here, thick stone walls, rounded arches, and small windows that don't let in a ton of light. That was intentional. This space was built for focus, not flash. Up front, you've got the altar, which would have been the center of daily worship for the monks living here. Around it, you'll see stone columns and vaulted ceilings that have held up for hundreds of years. As you move through, there are a few key artifacts to look for: statues of saints, some dating back centuries, and areas that were used to hold relics. This was a major pilgrimage site, so those items were a big deal to the people coming here. You'll also come across burial markers and tombs in parts of the Abbey. Many of the monks who lived here were buried right on the site. So we're standing here in the cloisters, and behind us is the courtyard that the monks would, back in 700 years ago, they said?
1200. Well, it was in the 1200s. Around
the 1200s, they would come and meditate, and the grass courtyard that you see in the center is what they would call paradise. Mm-hmm. And the covered walkways that you see is where they would, if it was bad weather, they could still walk and reflect and pray.
And the columns that you see around the courtyard, or the cloister, to think that they were carved over 700 years ago, and they're still here today. And we'll point out some numbers that we noticed, and apparently the numbers were put on by the masons when they were carving them, and that allowed them to be paid per, I guess, column or per piece of stone.
Whatever their number was, it was assigned, and they would be paid per that number. From what we understand, this is where the monks would come and they would have a meal, but it was all in silence, and whoever sat at the head table up there would read the word aloud, and they would meditate on it while they was having a meal. Back in the 1200s, guests like nobles, church officials, and pilgrims would gather here to eat and warm up after long journeys. And these massive fireplaces behind us weren't just for looks. They were essential for heating this huge stone room and cooking meals for dozens of people at a time. It's pretty amazing to think that centuries ago, travelers from all over Europe were welcomed right here, warming themselves by the same fires.
One thing that stands out is how it's not just one big space, it's a collection of smaller ones. There are chapels tucked into different levels of the Abbey, each built at different times, each with its own purpose. Some are simple and quiet, others a little more detailed, but all of them were used for daily worship. In between, you've got narrow passageways and quiet corners that break things up. This place was designed for a structured, peaceful routine, so there are a lot of spaces that feel a little removed from everything else. Altogether, it really shows how this wasn't just a single building. It was a complete living space designed all around daily life.
Okay, we are walking into the crypt of the Great Pillars. And these pillars are designed to carry the weight of the Abbey above us. And some of them are actually over 15 feet thick.
This might look like a giant hamster wheel, but it actually powered the entire Abbey. Welcome to the wheel room. This wooden wheel was used as a human-powered crane. Someone would walk inside it, and that motion turned a pulley system that lifted supplies all the way up from the base of the island. And we're talking everything: food, building materials, whatever they needed to survive up here. Later on, when the Abbey was used as a prison, prisoners were the ones doing the work inside this wheel. It's simple, it's a little brutal, and it worked. because getting anything up to the top of this place was no easy task.
As we make our way back down from the Abbey, you really get a different perspective on the climb. What felt like a steady walk up now turns into a long descent through the narrow stairs and winding passages. Looking back, you can see how everything is layered: chapels, halls, and walkways, all built into the rock over centuries. It's one of those places where the higher you go, the more you realize how much effort went into building it. On the way back down from the Abbey, we stopped into the parish church of the island. Unlike the Abbey at the top, this church has a much more local feel to it. It's smaller, quieter, and was used by the people who actually lived and worked in the village below. Inside, you'll find traditional stone walls, simple altars, and a few more modern touches compared to the Abbey. There are also statues, candles, and memorials that reflect the ongoing religious use of the space. While the Abbey was home to monks and pilgrims, this church served the everyday residents of the island, giving them a place to worship without having to climb all the way to the top. It's a nice contrast to the Abbey, less grand, but still very much part of the history and daily life here at Mont Saint Michel. By the time you reach the bottom, it feels like you've moved through different layers of time in just a single walk.
We did decide to bring our lunch out here. There is a ton of places to eat. There's fine dining and just walk up to and grab a sandwich places out here, so you won't have a problem finding a place to eat. And a couple of them were seemingly reasonably priced, but still more expensive than what we paid at the grocery store just to bring a sandwich out. But the place right across from us here, for example, they're charging €6 for a Coke, which would be about $7 US. Definitely, if you want to save money, bring yourself a little snack or lunch with you if you're planning to be out here for a while.
With the water pulled back, the bay opens up into wide stretches of sand and shallow channels. From here, you can actually walk around the island, but this isn't something to take lightly. The tides are known for rising quickly, much faster than most people expect. What looks like a long, open walk can turn into a situation where the water is moving in from multiple directions at once, cutting off your path back to shore. There are also areas of shifting sand and soft mud that can be difficult to walk on without guidance. That's why many visitors choose to go out with a local guide who knows the safe routes and timing. And timing really matters. The tide schedule here can change the landscape within hours, turning walkable sand into open water. So while it's incredible to see at low tide, it's important to stay aware, stick to marked paths, and plan your visit around the tide charts. Because here, the scenery changes fast and the bay doesn't wait.
That's our visit to Mont Saint Michel. It's one of those places that's more than just a stop. It's an experience from start to finish. If you're planning a visit, timing the tides, pacing the climb, and giving yourself enough time to explore really makes a difference.
And whether you come for the history, the scenery, or just the uniqueness of it all, it's one of those places that's hard to forget once you've been here. Thanks for coming along with us. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Retire to Rome if you've not already. As always, have a blessed day and safe travels.